If there is a message for us today, I believe it is to learn to live from our heart in love. These short lessons, hopefully, will help to inspire you to live with purpose, love passionately, and inspire others. We are the change agent our world needs. I'm Helen Toews. Step into the river today with me to explore the mysteries of God. They are not hidden from us, but for us to discover. I was really excited about this conversation. There's so much going on, and I really super appreciate all of you coming on early when you can, because we get to know each other a little bit more, and that really helps. I'm excited about tonight, but before we begin, after tonight, Susan, is Susan Sanowski on yet? Okay, if she's not, she's asked if I would consider doing a intention with her for her daughter. So we're staying on afterwards to do that. After the meeting, we'll cut the recording. It'll just be a private time, but it's private, but you're all invited. Anybody who wants to stay and intend with us, you're very welcome. She's written an intention, and we were just saying that the afterglow parties have been kind of fun and very sweet, as we've intended together for different things. So you're welcome, and there's no have-tos here. Anyway, the other thing that I mentioned in the chat time, one of the things that I would like to do, because we're starting, well, not just starting, but over the last couple of years, we've had some amazing testimonies, like miraculous things that have happened in ascension times, in intention times. And we had, I don't remember what week it was, but it was quite recently, where we shared some of the things that Father's doing, but some of the miraculous, the angelic, not interference, but cooperation in miracles. And so if you have a testimony, and if you would like to share it, I would really like to hear it and communicate with you, because what I want to do is I want to put up a section just called up Miracles on the website, that people can go and just listen to the miracle, just be encouraged by the miracle. We're talking about times where weather has changed because someone has prayed or taken authority, those kind of things. And I just think that would be super encouraging, because we are all one in this and in this time. So if this is you, if you have something that you want to share, I'm doing another project as well, and I'll tell you about that in a couple of weeks as we upload that. But there's things going on, because we want to really reach out, not just to people that are in the church, or that not just, this is a bad way to put it, because here's what I was going to say, not just Christian content, but we want to reach our world. And in the world, so many fabulous things are happening. Like, I don't know if you saw the Facebook post of the little girl that had been rescued after 150 days or something in Turkey, and was alive, and they asked her if she was hungry, and her testimony was, there was a man in white who came to her every day and fed her and brought her water. Like, hello, those kind of testimonies are way past encouraging. They just are exciting. And we are in this wonderful time. Jerry has something to share too from her God Squad. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Jerry.
I want to say about 2 weeks ago. Well, I'll start where the story started. My granddaughter was driving her car around Circle Drive in Saskatoon just before Christmas, and her tire went flat. And when that tire went flat, the snow was quite high, and it tore enough off the front of her car that it was totaled. And of course, she's 20 years old and doesn't have experience buying a car or whatever. And her brother are 7 hours away at school. And so she's been struggling trying to get this car and get auto pack and all that other stuff straightened out. And so we decided, I asked the girls if they would do an intention with me. So we did this intention that Kyra and my daughter would find cars that were just perfectly suited for them. So anyway, Shane and Alana went this weekend to visit Kyra and Dayton, and they had a number of car opportunities to look at cars set up. And every time they would go to do the car, either the people wouldn't show up, or there'd be two people there and he'd be showing the car to the one guy, and then all four of them would just get in the car and drive away, presuming the car had sold, or they'd get a text message 20 minutes before they were supposed to show up at the appointment that the car was sold. So this went on all day Friday, and it went on all day Saturday, and Alana started reaching a little bit outside the parameters of Kyra's budget, and Shane and Dayton are saying, like, she can't afford that, come on, so on and so forth. But Alana said, well, we kind of have to stretch our boundaries here a little bit, because what we're doing we aren't successful with what we're doing. So on Sunday morning, on a whim, she reached out to this man that had a vehicle for sale, and was very upfront with him, told him that, Kyra was on a limited budget. But he said, well, we'll meet, let's get together and see what happens. And I know a little bit more of this story now than when I had actually told my God Squad. So anyway, they went to meet this man. And when they met this man, very, very lovely man, first thing that he does is hand Kyra a couple of books. And the two books are Take Hold of God's Lifeline, Walking with God Through Anxiety and Depression. They're two books that he had written. So anyway, then he says, well, let's go back to my place and we'll work out whatever we can work out or whatever. And so they sit down at the table, and he says to Kyra, how much money have you got? And so Kyra is counting out her cash, and he had listed this car over $1,500 more than what Kyra had. Well, Kyra only had $4,800, and that had to sort of be the whole package for her. So she counts out her money in front of him, and he says, okay, that'll do. Well, that's good. So he dropped his car, the value of his car, to her budget, short of $150. And then he said to her, and do you see that co-op over there? He said, I was a mechanic before this. And he said, and I now work at that co-op. And he says, this is a good little car. He said, it's only got 140,000 kilometers on it. And if you will bring it to my garage, this garage, and you'll fill it up, I'll check the tires and the oils and all the fluids for you all the time. And it'll last you for a long time.
My word. Oh, my word.
I was so excited because I was able to tell, the only person I shared with Alana that we had done the intention. And, how could we deny that God was in it when he handed her two books with his name on it? It was, anyway, for me, it was incredibly delightful.
Oh, for all of us, it's incredibly delightful. I mean, that's a true miracle, eh? And that's a kiss from Father when he cares enough about a car, about, the things that so many people will say, oh, he's got more important things to look after than cars. But you look down.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And then he hands you a book and says, I got this, girl. Anyway, I was delighted.
That is so amazing. So amazing. Wow. Well, I just I'm loving this time that we're in, and I'm really excited. I really appreciate those kind of testimonies. Does anyone else have a testimony that they want to share or can share? Okay, then you're just
Elizabeth does. Elizabeth does.
ready to share. Okay, Elizabeth, where are
I
you?
do. So mine's a little different, but so we've talked about how the Lord has just expanded us and, taken us out of the box. And I went to see my friend the other day. She's older and she had polio, so she's in a chair, and she's just my wonderful friend. It's been a while, but I knew that this was the thing. Like, I didn't quite have time. There's just a lot to the story, but I was like, this is what's happening today. So I went, and she had her massage therapist there, who she's talked to me about her massage therapist. And so Jean and I always talk about, the Lord and what's going on in our lives. And so we began sharing, and I thought I just had this much time with her, but it ended up just being, this perfect amount of time. But as we were talking, her massage therapist was listening, and she started adding in, and she said, I was talking about energy and frequency, and she said, I totally understand what you're saying. There's someone that I listen to, and it's kind of like you would listen to a pastor or a message. And so it's like an uplifting speaker message. And she said, and Esther said, and I said, I know Esther Hicks. And she said, yes. And we so connected, and it was so amazing that, because I know in the past, I would have not been able to even hear, it just would have been kind of weird and kind of different, but we so connected. And at the, I began praying with Jean, and I were praying, and Christ just began pouring out and touching her. And it was so, like, what I saw, it was such a amazing day, that what I saw was that the Lord has taken me and expanded so that I can relate to these others. And then it's like the love of Christ poured and poured. And she was so touched, where she even said, I normally can't really receive, and, had these blocks or whatever, but Christ was just pouring into her. And I feel like the Lord was saying, you related with her, and then you showed her that not religion, but, God, Jesus is real, and Jesus touched her, and because she grew up and she was just like, that's not for me, this is more my speed. But I know that it brought a marriage in all that. And she was just deeply touched. So I don't know if I'm portraying it very well, but I'm like, I see what you've done, Lord. I see. It's amazing. Just being expanded and being like, yes, we're one. So
I love that. I absolutely love that. And you know what? Those are miracle encounters. They are, because these and aren't these the people we want to touch with love? Aren't these? They're not the people that are going to walk into church.
exactly.
Generally,
right.
They're the ones. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that. Thank you. Thank you. Wow. Well, we're in a lot of directions tonight, and this is so cool. Very cool. I'm gonna pin myself here so we can start. Judy mentioned Justin Abraham had a message that was worth listening to, and I don't know if we did it before we started the meeting or after, when we were in the chat, but I just wanted to mention that, because if something's important to one, maybe it's important to more. It was interesting as you were talking, Judy, about that. and about talking about about Enoch and, and visitations, that kind of thing. I had just been sitting with Father, and I had asked him that very saying, I actually wrote it down, and I said, there's so many people that are talking to whomever or the angelic, and I've had experiences, but that isn't my mainstay, if you will. And you know what he said? He said to me, he said, you have full access to me. He said, ascend to the throne. I'll read it because I wrote it as he spoke. Ascend to the throne, take your place here, and I will reveal to you the mysteries I have hidden for this time. And then I said, there's a scripture that says, no one sees the Father except through me. And he said, it is through Jesus, the veil, he is the veil torn, the veil of his flesh torn that gives you the access. We have full access to the Father. And then he said, welcome to the shift. I have no idea what that is, but we're all sensing something, right? We're sensing a shift. We're sensing, I think Elizabeth really, well, not just Elizabeth, but we were talking to Caroline before, and how things that we're focusing on and our conversations are expanding. They're beyond, they're just beyond the norm. They're beyond what we have normally been living. And it just seems to be more and more and more of us individually and corporately understanding that when we focus on what we need to be focused on, and who we need to be focused to, we completely expand in a way that we don't even have words for. It just happens. And then these serendipitous things happen, like meeting the friend, or making a new friend, and you're sort of just going with the flow. So tonight, I just wonder if everyone could just take a deep breath, and as we set ourselves to the time together tonight, I feel that I've been pretty excited well, with this message, and it may be a little hard for some people, but I believe it's part of our preparation and part of our time that we need to be taking really seriously as we go into the more, and as we go into the place that he really is, that we've been born for, that we've been born to. And anyway, let's just take a deep breath. Father, Father, we thank you. Thank you for what you're doing in us and through us, in our midst. Thank you for the understanding and the knowing, the intimacy of knowing that we are all one with you, one with each other. And Lord, tonight we position ourselves right there. We want to hear what you have to say. Lord, there's so much that is going on, and we're sensing it, we're feeling it. We just want to say thank you that you are in a time to reveal right now what it is that you are saying to us. Father, we love you. We thank you. And we just set our focus on you. Thank you, Father. Wow. Well, okay. In the light of where we ended last week, okay, we did an overview of being born again and the power of revival, and that's sort of probably what is igniting some of this in me, I know, because he's sort of taking us on a step by step to something that really we don't have words to yet. And I saw this blog. You know how these things, you just don't know how you got there. I don't even know the person, but I want to read a little bit from his blog because it really it sort of is another step from where we were last week, and it's to where we're going. And he said, and his name is Justin Taylor, and it's entitled Transformation and Metamorphosis. He said, transformation means to go from one thing to another. Metamorphosis is to transform from one thing into something greater. Metamorphosis, the Greek meaning transfigured, and meta meaning after, the morphosis, the beautiful form, describes the conversion process from the caterpillar to the butterfly, but it's a very interesting process. I'm not going to go back into the story of last week, but I love what he's saying. You see, the slimy caterpillar of no particular beauty crawls along the ground till eventually entering in its temporary prison, the chrysalis or cocoon. It resides alone and in darkness, not knowing what lay ahead. But when the time is right, it emerges as a beautiful winged butterfly. And that's where we're in right now. We're in the alone darkness in a way, but we're in it together. I think this is the cool part. So he says, not merely a transformation, but a beautification, a metamorphosis. And he quotes Romans 12:12. Be not conformed to this world, but be transformed, be metamorphized by the renewing of your mind. The proper translation from the Greek would have been metamorphosis rather than transformation. Once a caterpillar has become a butterfly, there is no turning back, even if it wanted to. Love that. The same with the mind, okay? It's the same with our minds. Once it has morphed into a new and better way of thinking, it cannot go back to its old ways. The desire's gone, the ability's gone, the old man is dead, and the new man has risen, resurrected, and become born again. Your true self, divine self, your God and Christ self are eternal. You were with God, the source, before you incarnated into matter here on earth. An Old Testament name for God is Elohim, which is plural, not singular in the Hebrew. This plural form means one made up of the many. The Father God is made up of all the sons of God, the particles, the fragments that make up entirely of the universe. Your mother formed a garment of flesh for you, and your parents named you. You were conditioned and trained to believe yourself to be only human, to be only a physical being of matter. When you announce yourself to others, you precede your name your parents labeled you with by using your real name. I am Robert, or I am Diane. Do you see that you are the I am that I am, and we are? Man fell from the consciousness of God to the consciousness of man, so God became man, so man may become God by the renewing of the mind. Colossians 3:10 reminds us, put on the new, renewed man, the Christ, the Spirit or the mind of God, which is the all in all, the source and the destination of all things, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. Well, that little blog probably just summed up 6 months of what we have been sharing and caring enough to step into. We lived simultaneously between two worlds. I call it dancing between two worlds. I love the dance that we're in. We have learned that every part of our physical being completely renews itself every 7 years. We're totally not the same person we were, but somehow, even knowing that fact, we're not conscious of it. And if we're not careful to this understanding, we really do carry the old person into the new. But what if we didn't? What if we began a conscious awareness program that created our outer world the same as our inner world? Spiritually, it is the same. We're influenced to the degree that we allow our consciousness to be recognized as important, but we need to stop being a sleepwalker. And here's where the dancing begins. Have you ever heard the expression, there's a ghost in the machine? I saw that as a book title, and I kind of love it because I'm using it. There's a ghost in us, and I'm calling it the soul. And we really don't recognize its importance because we don't realize it's an amazing facet of our true being. We're so used to living with the ghost that it becomes part of our everyday existence, and we're so familiar with it, we give it a lot of room. And I have to say, authority to live a life without change. Last month in our book club was Wayne Dyer's Wishes Fulfilled. The response was really interesting. Those of us raised in customs and church doctrines were really challenged. Our faith was challenged. This is right, this is wrong, we said or we thought, but with no true ability to say why in lots of the cases. Others of us were inspired and affirmed, and those who had some background in a broader understanding of different views and practices. Some of us loved the way that Dr. Dyer brought some new language to some of the things we already knew. Regardless of our present position in life to the book, excuse me, we all agreed that we want to grow and change, right? The things that are in our lives that hinder our relationship with each other, we want gone, but especially the things that hinder our relationship and us knowing God intimately. I actually printed out a saying, the saying, your thoughts create your reality. And it's in a Post-it note over the sink in my kitchen. It's just seeing it all the time, every day is changing me. It's a regular reminder that if I'm going to be that unlimited person that I am and break the 4-minute mile, then I have to take every thought captive, and everything begins with our thoughts. Nothing exists that didn't begin with a thought. And I'm feeling the shift, the atmosphere that's changing, and sensing with excitement that we are coming into a new. I'm beginning to get language to it, but if I did it now, when I talked to Father about it, he said it would be like ripping apart a cocoon to see if the butterfly was ready, or putting a hole in a fertilized egg to help the baby chick emerge before it's time. They wouldn't survive. When I spoke about it, I was impressed today not to talk about what is happening, but to inspire us, especially those who are sensing the same thing as I'm trying to describe, and so that it will help us to prepare for what we're coming into, and to understand that a foundation is needed for the process so that we can enter into this new, not just with confidence, but by being changed, by being metamorphosized. Anyway, that word is fun. So last week, the lesson was about change and what it means to be born again, and about revival. So I asked, it's brought me water. Thanks, Eddie. So I asked Father if this new was about revival, and what about it? I asked if it was similar to what we understand. Is it a reformation, like to be formed into something else? Is it a renaissance where it influences and changing people and cultures? Is that the plan? And he said, yes. But that's only a part of it. There's a language to what we're shifting into that is new. With this comes requirements. And I know a lot of us don't like requirements, but it's time for us to grow. And it's time for us to grow up into the one new man and to understand the importance of maturing. There are prerequisites and requirements to this new season. It wasn't something that I had expected to hear. And it might not be for everyone, but I really believe that if we're in this together, there's an essence to all that we understand together. My instruction was to bring inspiration and practical understanding to make this process clear and to help us all get to the place we talk about, but we need to know how to take responsibility for it. You see, revival, which is great and encouraging and strengthening, or reforming, or like a reformation or reforming something old that becomes new, or renaissance, all those things means that we're going from one thing to another. But let's look at what James Taylor's excerpt said. The metamorphosis is to transform one thing into something greater. I believe that's what we're going into. We're going into something greater. When Jesus said, "These things and more shall you do," he meant it, something greater. This slimy caterpillar of no particular beauty crawls around the ground till eventually it's in a temporary prison, the chrysalis or cocoon, resides alone in darkness. Some of us are feeling that. Some of us are feeling, we're feeling it, but we're feeling that cocooning, we're feeling that darkness, but we're in that with him. Like we are in a place, it's not a place of fear. It's not a place of worry about something. It is truly a beautification process. And it is one where we are not to be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of our mind. And being alone in the darkness, not knowing what lies ahead, really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, because from the darkness, he reveals the mysteries. From that place of just being us, just silent, we become transformed. A couple of weeks ago, I had the most outstanding time in a 10-day cocoon. That was when we were in Mexico. When Ed and I go to Mexico, it's not a big party. We don't travel with others. We just take time away from routines of life and some of the traumas of life's journey. And it's always been a transformation time for me. I get to spend many hours alone without, telephones and doorbells and the normal day-to-day house work, all that kind of stuff. I spend the time in silence and in my mind. I was cocooned. This time, something very different happened. I came out different. How do I know? Because when I came home, the first thing I did was I had a meditation time, as I've done a lot. And what I do is I hold friends and family in my heart, send love, mercy, compassion, gratitude. Sometimes, not always, when I did that, I would go in and out of monkey brain while I'm doing it. I'm just being really transparent here. Or I would allow myself to have a moment in that process, and judgment would come in, or some obscure reasoning, and I'd have to shut it down, being a little bit hard on myself maybe, but annoyed. For instance, I might be thinking of a family member who's separated themselves or been rude to me. And then you start this active conversation that they're not a part of, but it's in my head. And then I have to pull myself back into the meditation, pull myself back to what I'm doing, which is sending out love. So how do I know that things shifted? Because I went into that same thing that I've been doing, and not one time I had changed. I actually had changed. And it was an exciting time. I had no sidebars. I had no judges. I didn't have my own opinion. I actually had this amazing true love in feelings, emotions, and truth. There was no static. There's no interference at all. I felt like I hit a frequency that's not just amazing, but it's expanding, because it hasn't stopped. It's only been 2 weeks, but I'm just being totally transparent. I've never been in this place of actually sending the force of and passionate love, care, understanding, gratitude. One of the things that I have been practicing is if I've been in an intention with someone, either our own home God Squad or with some of you, I have gone back in my heart to those intention times and sent it at that time the gratitude for what's going on. And Caroline, you absolutely blessed me by sharing some of the things that you did just with me personally, saying that you'd felt some kind of connection, because I'll tell you what, you're one of those people that I hold, because we've spent time in intention for you and in our group. I am so blessed that you're feeling that connection. I'm over the moon. How do I know? It's because I've really longed for this moment where I'm in a clear frequency where I don't get sidetracked, and I am loving it. I am absolutely loving it. When I'm in those times of and I just call them as my prayer time, but this is the way I'm doing it. And I'm speaking to you because you get it. You get it. It's not your general lists that you bring before God. It's from the one new man that I am part of, which is part of you. And whatever he did in those 10 days of my cocooning, he changed me into a person, put me in a place where I'm not distracted in that release of love. I have done some work to get there, and I'm going to share that. I also have been asking the Father about death. There is so much around us lately. And he took me to an understanding that has taken me to a place of reality of what it is, not intellectually or emotionally. And that is very exciting and expanding. I've experienced there is no sting in death. I've done all the dying that I'm going to do, that Christ took death on a cross and I was crucified with him. And there's no longer I who live, all became real. The third thing that happened is I used to be creeped out by snakes and some images. You know how you're watching a movie or something on television, or and you see these and you really get triggered. I have no emotional triggers here. It's like even to snakes or dangerous animals, things that I would emotion would hit me, and I went, wow, there is no fear. And then I realized there is no fear in love. Perfect love casts out fear. And it might sound crazy, but I feel like that new creature. And I am loving what I'm experiencing, and I'm believing that this will continue to be expanding. And I've shared many times, I won't share something that I'm not experiencing. I'm finding it difficult to share that, because I don't want it to be a look at me, I've arrived somewhere. What I want to do is just share a process that is part of what's going on. But we've been talking so long, it has to be the inward change. It's an inward journey. It's not a going to someplace and having it done. And this metamorphosis that we all are in that the cocooning and in the darkness, we're in it together. And if it's happening to one, it's happening to more. And that's the exciting part. It's so exciting for me that I know with an assurity I'm not alone. And I know with an assurity that it is that love walk that we're called to, that is going to be a critical part of the shift that we're in. So tonight, I want to look at some of the ways and processes that I've also been in and making myself aware and change. And why? Because there's only one way to do that. And it's the conscious action of putting on and becoming the new man, right? Colossians 3:10 says what? Put on the new man. There's an action in there. We're instructed to put something on. Put on the new man, the renewed man, the Christ, the spirit or mind of God, which is all in all. We put on the source, the destination of all things, everything. We put on Christ. We have the mind of Christ to be the reality of I am that I am. So do we need to be renewed in this to do that? Okay, we need to be renewed in the spirit of our mind, Ephesians 2:10, for we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus unto good works, which God had before ordained that we should walk in it. We're in today, in this change, in this cocoon, was ordained that we should walk in it before the was. And there's a promise. If anyone is in Christ, he's a new creation. Old has passed away. Behold, the new has come. I am not going to look in the rearview mirror. I don't want to go back. I do not want to go back. I do not want to, Romans 12, to conform to the pattern of this world, but I want to be transformed by the renewing of my mind. So this has some key points. They're not 1, 2, 3, and then you arrive, but there's some key points that I've meditated on and things that have changed for me. First thing is we have to recognize that our thoughts matter, that nothing exists. Nothing exists. Look around you. Nothing exists that wasn't a thought first. Even the building you're in, the land that you sit on, it was a thought somewhere. 40 years ago, when I was running a 10K every day, loved those times, I would listen to motivational speakers. Anybody remember the Walkman? Like, they were cumbersome and bothersome, but I actually ran with them in my hand at times. One of my favorite speakers was a guy by the name of Dennis Waitley. I called him my favorite Mormon at the time. And in particular, he had this one message that I must have listened to 100 times. And it wasn't a scripture thing or a church thing. It was just plain good sense. And it was called Go for the Gold. I heard it over and over. And he kept saying, and I've used this many times in messages, you can only move toward your dominant thought. You cannot move toward the reverse of an idea. And I loved hearing that because for 40 years, it's become an anchor. A good coach will tell their athlete what to do and not to speak failure into them. So for instance, I was coaching 4 people at that time, 4 children in our house that were born, each 22 months apart. So when Susan, the youngest, was born, Paul, the oldest, was 7 months away from turning 6. I had 4 children in 5 years. And yes, it was a busy time. I thought friends who had 1 or 2 children was my idea of nothing to do. I was a busy girl. So I took that Go for the Gold message into my parenting, and I learned on the job. Instead of saying, don't run with scissors, I would yell, because that is the reverse of an idea, right? Don't run, do not run. And I would yell, stop, because that's what I wanted to happen. Just stop. Have you ever heard fathers say, stop it? Like, that's all he says, stop. When I had the child's attention, then I would say, give me the scissors. That was a command, that it was a positive thing to do, or put the scissors on the floor. So giving a clear instruction, one simple command, was better than the reverse of the idea, because that's confusing. When you say to somebody, don't do something, because you know what your focus becomes on? The what not to do. So when we are in this transformation time, we need to know what to do, not what not to do. We know actually what not to do. What does God say? He says, put on Christ, renew your mind. You are the righteousness of God in Christ. You can do all things. He never tells us, never the reverse of a thought. It's clear instruction to do it one way, his way. So one of the challenges of using this dominant thought technique was when I was teaching Susan how to downhill ski. And I know that I've shared this before, but it's worth the illustration. It's my best illustration, actually. She was an amazing athlete, high performance gymnast, very well coordinated, loved being outdoors. However, I'm her mom. And you listen differently to your mom than your coaches. Do you know that? Your children think their coaches, just about anybody is smarter than you. And Sue kept falling. And when I was skiing behind her, I was easy to see what she was doing wrong. And we had a conversation to help her. In the turn, keep your weight on your downhill ski. Well, logically, that instruction doesn't feel right because your body, when you're telling somebody put your weight onto a downward motion, it doesn't make sense because you feel like you're going forward. So what you do is you overcompensate and you fall backwards. And she wouldn't listen. She didn't listen and she kept falling. So I showed her in slow motion what I was suggesting. And she was so frustrated and she said, just tell me what I'm doing wrong. So after having that very dialogue, I said, if you're going to do this, you will have to do it in the way I'm telling you. Everything had come easy to her, but this for some reason was eluding her that day. And it was a cold ride home. She never actually did go back skiing. And I share that only because the only person that can change our lives is us. And the most frustrating times as a parent, coach, or teacher is to help another. But when it's not received or acted on, there is nothing that parent or coach can do. And God does the same with us. He tells us directly the instruction, and we go and we wrap a philosophy around it, or what is taught in the world, or we'll sing the song, I'll do it my way. Well, how's that working? Well, because we have free will, and thank you, Father, for free will. What a privilege. What a privilege. He never superimposes his will on ours, even if he knows it's dangerous, you know. He tells you it's hot, he tells you it's hot, it tells you it's hot. And you know it's hot, and you touch it anyway. Wow. Ask me how I know. Ask me how I know. He actually believes that we are so intelligent that we can understand and also implement what he does. You know, that there's a saying that says, if you want someone to listen, just whisper. And that's why sometimes his voice is a still small one and not a blast. When we're immature, he may speak a little bit more loudly. And in my household, he used a mom who did raise her voice, especially when danger was involved. I called it my outside voice. And sometimes God will use that outside voice with us. But now after 50 years plus, there's hope. This mother can actually have regular conversations with a more mellow inside voice. Oh, and sometimes just a look or a glance, you know those, the nonverbal. Well, Father's the same. Father's the same. Sometimes he will yell. We won't hear. He will whisper and he'll get our attention. And sometimes when you're up close and you see the face of God, you see his face and you look into his eyes and him into yours, a glance is all he needs. The second thing that I did was I created anchors for my soul. This may sound a little bit silly, but when we're in relationships, especially man and wife, or or, best friends or in a group. Sometimes it's that you have messages that you can give to each other without bringing up a lot of baggage with it. And I married a man that I'm so glad I'm on the same life journey with. Ed is amazing. So for almost 30 years, we've been on the same page, not always the same books, but in all the things that matter, we are one. We have different ways of approaching things or different ways of thinking, certainly different interests as to television and sports, but our foundation is genuinely hearing the other and making adjustments to understand, not just to be understood. When we are learning something, much like what I'm sharing here, instead of getting frustrated with each other, we have sayings that we use in certain situations that diffuse. And here's one I want to tell you about. When we were first married, I had been married for 25 years, raised 4 children, and Ed was a 55-year-old bachelor. Now, you would think maybe there's a few differences there. Yeah, we had things to sort out, but both of us were willing to change. We got to a place where Ed understood my home was really important. He used his home as a landing place for all of his phys ed stuff, and for he ran the volleyball stuff and everything that he was doing. So a dining room table for him was a workspace. And I would say, honey, we're going to have company for dinner tonight. We will need to clean up the dining room. This is what he did. He went and got a blanket and he covered it. All the books, all the stuff that was on there that he was working on, he covered it. He cleaned it up. That was his way to clean. Well, that didn't work so much. So we had to really deal with things that, okay, honey, let me be the person on the inside of the house. Let me make it at a home. You like the outside stuff. Really cool. So we did. We didn't say rules, but we had these conversations, and then we lived very, very organically. But one of the things I didn't like was gardening. Still don't love gardening. And he does. He likes the outside stuff. So one time I thought, I'm going to be with him. And so I started, with the hose, watering the lawn. I thought, I'm part of this. I'm watering the lawn. It's spring. It needed it. And Ed came over and he said, here, let me help you with this. And he took my hose. And I thought, the one thing that I can really do here is water. And you took my hose. And my thoughts were, there's an acre of land here, and I'm not getting out the rototiller. I'm not shoveling anything. We actually had a volleyball court on it. Please don't take my hose. I found my happy place. It's the one thing I'm able to do and not be grumpy out here. And that incident became a teachable moment because I left the yard, went into the house. He watered. I thought, go at it. I know, Helen, attitude counts. But when he came in, we had the conversation on what had happened. And he knew something had happened, but wasn't really sure what. He just married an old-fashioned girl. I like keeping house. The inside's important, easy to make decisions. He loved that. And he loved the outside work, including gardening. Yay. It's a longer story, but what happened was, now when the one person goes into the other person's space, whether it's me going into his space or him going into mine, and it needs to be mentioned, we don't go into the big mention, because all we need to say is, don't take my hose. And that one thing, it's been fun. It's been fun for us. It became a buzz phrase, but it really means, I'm just fine doing this. Thank you for your consideration. I know you're only trying to help, but why don't you go and find something constructive other than this, and let me finish here. Not just about me, but him too. Sometimes I go and take his hose, but it became a gift. This small saying means it says more to the two of us than anyone else, of course. It doesn't matter. But when you find those little things, it's not a bad thing. And that has anchored a shift. When we were first married, it anchored a lot of things. Just that one little saying that it became fun. Hey, and we use it today too. Sometimes I get to say, you're taking my hose. Sometimes when I interfere in his garage stuff at the lake, he says, don't take my hose, don't interfere. And so instead of it becoming a contention, that's what we do. You know, the first time I saw Todd and Elizabeth care for Jen, it's been over a year or two now, I saw unconditional love. They impacted me, and I'm not saying this to embarrass you, Elizabeth. I know you're on the call, and Jen, but I often, when I am in a situation of needing to anchor myself, position myself in love, I go to that image. And it wells up in me, because they didn't even know that they were giving me that gift. But it's so beautiful. Other anchors are my mind movie images. They're easy to pull up when I'm struggling in any area. I am wealth, I am health, I am wisdom, love, unlimited. And I'm in the place right now that when someone's speaking negatively, judging people, I just feel like it's like nails on a blackboard. And I love the fact I'm reacting to this change. If you struggle with anything, it could be a key for you to have an anchor that brings you to the place called now, and actually prevents taking offense or going in a wrong direction. Because remember, this is an inward work, and it's between you and Father. When you put yourself in that place, you must address it right away. Inwardly, if inwardly is a process that we deal with ourselves, right? You deal with you. No one else needs to be in the mix. Whatever's going on, it's no one's fault or responsibility. It's a place of your secret life, the place where you fuel your thoughts and emotions and create a forward momentum. When a thought comes to you that you know is negative and unproductive, something that you do not want created, you can simply say no, really, no out loud. Doing a small thing like this can release you from your thought world. The place, your heart has a garden, and in that place you plant seeds, you water them, and they will come up exactly in the images of the seed that's planted. You know that? That's what our thoughts do. We want our dimensionally unlimited world to be planted so that our reality of our 3D existence will spring up. We plant heaven's thoughts, ideas, and heaven will produce in your life on earth as it is in heaven. If it's an outward thing that comes at you, deal with it right away. Address it right away. The benefit of being on a journey with other people, your partner, spouse, for instance, or your home group, your God squad, you can give permission for people to speak into your life. It might be brutal, but it can be simple as, don't take my hose. Wayne Dyer has a saying, if you read the book, it says, it's not the wake that drives the boat. And the meaning of that is that there might be a lot of action in the water behind the boat that you're driving, but it's not the wake, but the power in the boat that causes it to go forward. Looking behind has no value unless you're watching a water skier or you want to go that way. So using a phrase like, it's not the wake that drives the boat, for instance, if someone says that a negative statement, or even within your own thoughts, actually, I've been doing that since I read the book. It's a phrase to me. Ed and I actually have said it to each other. If we've said something that isn't productive, we've said it's not the wake that drives the boat. It's understood by us because we understand it, but it's anchors like that we have on the inside of us that keep us moving forward, that keep us realizing we're the power that drives us forward. So this one here is really the next issue is for us to recognize the ghost in the machine, which is your ego. This is really super important because it's a default to many of us. Our egos, Wayne Dyer calls ego edging, EGO, edging God out. It's a great term. Ego is a part of us that's trained from birth. We've actually been trained to edge God out, and we need to recognize and change thoughts and behaviors if we're going to be able to reprogram our subconscious behaviors and replace them with Christ consciousness. And so here's part of our measuring stick. These next points are really, really key. We want to deal with our ego because our ego is earthbound. Our ego is not our spirit man. Our ego pulls us into 3D when we are created to fly. Number one, do you see yourself as a physical being only? Are your first thoughts to your body, or do you see your I am? Do you see your divine being? Do you see unlimited? Or does your body serve you, or do you serve your body? And we've learned that we are the technology. Like our body is a technology that can bring about healing and well-being. And we are, I am that. We are that. So do you measure how you are by your 3D life? Or do you know that you are an unlimited being? We have to come to the place where our first thought is not to our physical, but to our spiritual, to our understanding. And that doesn't make us so spiritual we're no earthly good, actually. It recreates us into that supernatural being that we're called to be, so that when we come into situations like Elizabeth shared tonight, we in our bodies minister out of our spirit man. We in a higher place than being grounded like a caterpillar. Number two, are you concerned about how you look more than who you are? In the Dennis Waitley program, or the tapes that I would listen to in the Go for the Gold, he says, I may not be the best looking in the room, but I will be looking my best. And I think that is such a good way to think about ourselves. It takes out the comparison, right? I'll just look my best. And then you know what? If you just do your best, then you walk into the room and you're just fine because you're not doing a comparison. If you're driven by how you look to others, or you are consciously or subconsciously comparing yourself to someone else or some culture or something you want to aspire, look in the mirror and see yourself as God sees you, because that's your best measure. You may not be the best looking, but you can always look your best and stand strong and tall. Third is, what do you do? Those are three words that used to absolutely make me shake my head more than once. It's okay to be proud of your education, your professional choice or vocation, but it's not okay if it's your identity. You know, my first husband was a dentist, and as a very young woman, I remember being introduced at a medical clinic where I was working, and a person in the dental group in that clinic introduced me as Dr. Connor's fiance. Seriously. Do you know, not one person in that group asked me my name. that whole thing was based on some kind of warped ego thing. And I thought, just, where's the door? I actually was mature enough to laugh, and I just left. But anyway, you get the gist of that. Dozens of times over the years, really lots of times, as a woman in particular, at professional functions and gatherings, I remember being asked, so what do you do? And at this time, being a wife and mother had lost its rank and importance, and women were going back to the workforce and looking for other people to raise their children. My husband laughingly told me to simply say that I was a professional volunteer. I preferred to be a domestic goddess, but finally I sat and answered. I had read a book called Sidetracked Home Executives. I don't know if you've seen that, but it was a fun book. And so my answer became, I am responsible to change the climate of the world around me by walking in love and to be light in dark places. I aspire every day to touch someone with love and put my hand out to those in need of inspiration. I live a presence-driven life on purpose, and I walk deliberately in strength and wisdom outside my normal, natural limits. I am a daughter, a wife, a mom, a friend, and I am responsible for shaping our next generation to be healthy, loving, caring contributors to our future. And oh yeah, what do you do? Seriously. I only used that once, but it was really fun, really fun. Number 4, how are you perceived by others? Are you concerned about your reputation? So when we live our lives before the audience of one, and that being our goal, we become less and less concerned about our reputation. Are you aware that no one but you can make you feel bad, feel ashamed, feel angry, frustrated, fearful? You are what you think. As a man thinks in his heart, you cannot have any of those feelings unless it's within you to respond. That was a big one. That was a big one. Our reputation is what others perceive of you. You have no control over that, and you will never feed that monster inside. You can't feed it enough to make your reputation any different. Make sure that you like you. Love yourself. It's okay. And personally, I take every criticism to heart. It doesn't stay there, but I think every criticism has value. So no matter where it comes from, I personally will ascribe value to it and ask Father, is there anything in there that I need to know? And now I'm learning to be grateful for it, because it often shows something that I've hidden, need to deal with, or have to sincerely repent for. So criticism doesn't bother me. You're allowed to say, I have something to tell you, because you are valuable. Maybe you're the messenger. One of the messengers can be your children too. Seriously, they are brutal, but don't get offended. Don't get offended. Your partner, mate, best friend, they can be your biggest critic, but if you take it as negative criticism, you're working from your ego. If you understand that it's something to be grateful for, you'll change. Trust me, it works. Next one is, what have you accomplished? That's where our egos really get in. And this whole comparison thing. Remember, it's the power in the boat that keeps it going forward, not the wake that's left behind. Our accomplishments are admirable, but it's our now, our present moment in time that we're responsible for, and our life doesn't need a rearview mirror. Have you ever met someone and they just start naming superstars? People that they've met that are so impressive, and the important and influential people that they have on speed dial. Wow, that's your ego speaking. My favorite people are the ones who want to talk about thoughts, feelings, and ideas, not people, places, and things. All right. Your ego gets concerned with what you own. Does your financial worth dictate or determine your value? I really hope not. You actually have unlimited finances and wealth. That is who you are. There's people who own very little, but they make the largest difference and impact in our world because they're more concerned with serving others than they are accumulating stuff. Finances, accumulating stuff, that's not our happiness. We need to understand we are the happy. It's not. Our fulfillment to happy needs to be from the inside out, not the outside in. Accumulating material is not our goal. What we own is not who we are. I used to say that Ed and I used to use this phrase that we are living on a fixed retirement income. I mean, at one time, I was asked about our financial status, and that was my answer. I've used it many times. I had to let that one go. I actually no longer believe it. I actually have more than enough to live, to do all that my scroll is destined to accomplish. I see my mind movie. I am wealth. So I don't worry about that anymore. I just know whatever it is that we're called to do, Father's in the middle of it. I have to continue to remember what we focus on expands. And if we're focused on finances of dreams and visions, you will not fulfill your vision. You've got if you're focused on how it's going to happen, you're in the wrong field of dreams. But focus on your dreams, focus on your vision, do everything that you know to fulfill that, and watch how you are met in that fulfillment for all the need that you have. And it comes in, it's not all about money. It comes in really, might be people coming alongside you. It might be, oh, I have this office. Why don't you use that? Or come with me and I'll introduce you to. Somehow these, when we focus on our dreams and visions, the other stuff happens around it, because nothing is impossible with God. Just keep our focus in the right direction. So the important thing is to check ourselves, right? In our thoughts, in our conversations. If our ego attracts you toward compromise, toward comparisons and doubts, say out loud, I am enough. Create some anchors for yourself in all the categories. Speak affirmations. Use inspired texts like, I am the righteousness of God in Christ. I am unlimited. When you speak over yourself, you choose love over fear. We need to remember love is not a verb, it's a noun. Love is the ultimate spiritual being. Love is the source of all that is good. Love is where you have been created, and it's your reality when you allow it to be. We don't need to be anything that we're not. You don't have to prove yourself for anything. You don't need to indulge your ego with fears or keep your real self at a distance. You are enough. We can say, I am enough. And it affirms what you choose to love, because love never fails. Our ego can be sneaky. The reason being is it's been hidden behind perceived logic that is accepted by the world system. And in doing so, this ghost in your machine becomes more real than your real soul and spirit in itself. It is when it's repeatedly affirmed and embedded in your subconscious of belief and practice there, it feels good. And that's how it's sneaky. The good is the enemy of God, what we think are good egos still edges God out. Actively and on purpose, create the reality you want to see. It begins when you select a different thought. We are dancing between two worlds all the time. It can be exhausting and demoralizing. It can be a challenge because you want to live in the place where you can be at rest. But we coexist all the time in the seen and the unseen. The seen is our temporal existence. The unseen is our real world, our thought world. And it's the place where reality is birthed from. Our thoughts become our reality. So selecting a different thought is the key. But before that, we have to understand that it is a divine capacity within us who live in kingdom realities, that what we do attract all that we need to desire. It's a difficult concept to understand that everything is created has already been created. That's why our thoughts are so important. That's why doing things God's way is so important. He sees the overall, every single thing. There is nothing that you can think of that isn't already there. That is something that I have actually spent hours in meditation to. I have seen myself sitting in the kingdom of God, in this place, so that not only is the kingdom of God in me, the kingdom of God is everything, is all around me. It's in this layer, it's in the one that's in my world around me that I call earth or third dimension. It's the one that's the heaven above that. It's the one that's the heaven above that. It's the universe. It's the cosmos. Spend time just sitting and thinking of the reality that in that space, number one, he is. There isn't any place that God isn't. There isn't anything that you can desire that isn't there, because the minute that you desire it, you actually create it, because your thoughts are your creative force. So there is nothing. When we start to link up with that reality, that's a better movie than any you'll put on. And you'll see the unlimitedness that you are called to. I'm hoping that you're getting that, because what we're shifting into is exactly that. We're coming into that place of that being our reality. In that place are the angelic beings that are here present right now. They are the cloud of witnesses. I don't know how they move in and out. All I know is that they do. All I know is that nothing's impossible. When Jesus said, "You go and do all the things that I did," it's okay for us to say, "I heal the sick. I raised the dead. I walked through that wall. I gave love. I did it. It's okay." He said, "You go do it." Well, if you're doing it, what else can you say? In religious tones, we go, "Oh yes, but it's him doing it through us." And we go through all of this religious gymnastics when it's so simple. He says, "You go and do it." And I'm allowed to say, "That's what I'm doing." You know, I have a friend who actually brought a child back from drowning. She was on a trip and she was at a wharf. They had just come off the boat. She and her husband were backpacking, and this child had been found in the water, and this child wasn't breathing. It was virtually dead. And she moved through she's just a little sprite of a thing. She moved through and she laid hands on the child. The child's breath came back to her. And the same way she went in, she left. She just went in, raised the dead, and came back out again. That is our portion. That is our portion. There is nothing impossible. There is nothing in us that we are not responsible to, because somehow it's landed. But in that, we have the unlimited capacity to change. And it's never too late. You're never too old. You're never too young. We can do it. So let's give ourselves permission to enter that infinite world of all possibility. It's by visualizing its very existence, even though it's unseen to most people. I don't care if it's unseen to everybody in your group, tribe, church. It doesn't have to be to you. It's seen to those who will look. Our conditioning from birth is to know and believe that what we see, hear, feel, touch is our existence. Sadly, we established by rote that our physical self was the important element of energy, that our soul and spirit belonged to the New Age philosophies. The fact is, we can forfeit our power to manifest something by doing nothing. It's time to do something. It's time to go through the crowd and raise the dead. It's time it's okay. Jesus said, you lay hands on the sick and they will recover. You go and do it. You can do it. Once we know we can, once we understand, then we have to put it into motion. Give yourself permission to be the I am that you were created to be. We're going into the new, best time of our lives that will require us to be the best we can be in the process. Do we have to be perfect? Well, you know what? That's up to you. Personally, I'm challenging myself to that. Matthew 5:48, be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. I add a little note to that when I think about it. Be perfect as Father is, because that's the image I've been created in. I don't use it as I have to be perfect. I'm just using it to provoke us right now. Just provoke us. Can we be? We can be all that He has said that we can be. If you find yourself in a place of condemnation at this point, please know, condemnation is never, ever from God. There's only one being, the enemy of your soul, that brings condemnation. Here's how we know. When we condemn others and ourselves, it brings hopelessness, and we cooperate with darkness. So don't allow the voice of the enemy to have any part of your thinking. If there's a dark thought, tell it to shut up and say it loud if you have to. Say, no, you have no place. The end. Boom. Don't analyze it. Just say no. Replace those thoughts. If you don't, the victim mentality will be the power that drives your boat. If you're serious about going forward, get rid of the rearview mirror. It's not the wake that drives the boat. Do like David did and encourage yourself in the Lord. I want to encourage you with two scriptures. Romans 12 from the New Living. It says, so, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all He has done for you. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind He will find acceptable. This is the true way to worship Him. Don't copy the behavior and customs of the world, but let God transform you into a new person, changing the way you think. Then you will learn God's will for you, which is good, pleasing, and perfect. In Colossians 3, 12 to 14, you can read, but essentially we've said it before, put on as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts. Put on these things. Put on kindness, humility, meekness, patience, bearing with one another. If one has a complaint against another, forgive each other. As the Lord has forgiven you, so forgive. And above all, put on love, because love binds everything in perfect harmony. love never fails. I really hope you're encouraged tonight, that you're not feeling condemned or, but I really felt to share the little bit of the how-tos and the things to think about. I know that this room here is thinking about things all the time, but I'm sharing with you the things that have been part of my process, and it's been hard. It's been hard. It's been work. It has been a lot of work, and you know what? It still is. It still is. To stay the course, to keep looking for it, to drive the boat, not look behind, is work. But it's not just rewarding work. It's exceptional. It's exceptional in its landing place. So I really, really hope that you're encouraged and that there isn't any bit of condemnation in it. But what we do with this is our key. This responsibility, I know it might feel really big, but this responsibility is so important. No one else can do it for you. There's no revival in this earth. There's no church service. There is no magic bullet for this. This inside work is our responsibility. And the end. That's Gina. The end. The end. Oh my golly. What time is it? It seems very long. How are you doing? You okay? We still friends?
Amazing. Thank you for sharing all of that, because those are the hard things that make the metamorphosis happen, right? And so thank you, because that's important for us to hear, and important for us to let it sort of slam against us, right? Because sometimes those kinds of things feels like that. It's not a picnic. But there's ants at a picnic. There's things that niggle you. There's things that annoy you and grab you. But it's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina.
I'm in.
I want whatever it is we're heading into. I want all of it. I want all of it. I want to be on the team, and I have no aspirations for leading the charge on anything like we used to. We have to come to that place. We are that one new man, and move forward together in what it is, and help each other along the way. Really support each other in love.
Yeah.
Hadassah, you're there.
So I have to go to work. So I go to work at 7 o'clock my time. So I want to say something before I leave. Couple of things. I was right when you were, I guess, in the middle of it. I don't know what point. I was getting a vision,
Okay.
an image. It was like, oh my gosh, it was so clear. So let me see if I can describe it. So what I was seeing was a table. It was a banqueting table. It was a long table, beautiful tablecloth on it. But in the middle of it, it was this vase, like a basket, a vase with fruit on it. It's like every time you were saying things, it was like, not every time. All the things that you were saying, they was, to me, it's like golden nuggets. It's like, wait a minute, this is too much stuff, guys. Like, wait a minute. It was so much food, I guess. but what I was seeing was the pieces of fruit that were on this basket, and they look alive. They were like apples. It was fruit, apples, and grapes, and then peaches, and then pomegranate. Is that how you say it? Pomegranates? And they were alive, and they were these beautiful colors. And I go, oh my gosh, they're so good. And it was like we were right in front. I mean, we were all around the table, and it's just there for us to grab. It's all there for us to eat. It's all yours. This is, I'm giving you a buffet. I mean, a banqueting table with all this fruit. And the words I was getting was delicious, alive and wholesome and plentiful and clean food. Anyway, all this time. It was such a beautiful, but what, it was really amazing to me to see the fruit, because they were so alive. They were so, like, especially the apples, they were so good. Anyway, like, I gotta share that with, I had to share that with you. The other thing I want to share is, I've been talking to the Lord for a while about ego. And I did it because I wanted to understand that. It's like, what is that in it? I know it was the flesh. And back years ago, everything we just thought, I thought it was the pride. I just, labeled it as pride. But now, in this few couple years, so maybe a year ago or so, I've been hearing a lot about ego. Am I saying ego, ego? However, it's the same word in Spanish. It's the same word in Spanish. I don't know if I'm saying it in Spanish or in English. But anyway, so it is like, so I've been talking to the Lord about that, and I knew it was part of my flesh, but I just couldn't recognize it. It's like, is this like, is it me? Is it my ego? Is it pride? And I'm trying to identify it. I've been in this journey, for, again, I don't know how many months. So it's very, very interesting that you're the first one that you really gave a lot of details on it. So I need to go back and kind of make notes, especially on that, because I want to understand that, because I know for me that, well, I guess you also said it, it's not the spirit. You're not being led by the spirit when you let the ego show up there, its ugly face. But how do you get rid of it? I mean, if you don't understand it, you don't know where it's coming from or where it is. Anyway, so I really appreciate you bringing that teaching. That's it. Got to get ready to go to work. Blessings.
Thanks, Hadassah. Thank you. Yeah, our ego is like a person, like a wild tiger, right? That you have to train for or a stubborn dog that you need to train to sit and be quiet. And I found that I got to a place of having to be really, really tough. Like the points that I shared, to be tough with yourself. No one knows when you're doing this work, right? It's your inner work. You can be polite, you can be the belle of the ball, and everyone thinks this is just, but you're dealing with your inner work, especially your ego. You've got to be tough on you. It's not somebody else, and it's not God being tough on you, by the way. It's you responding to the Lord and say, yeah, I want to go your way. So I'm not going to give thought to this, that, or what. I'm not going to give it any airtime. I'm not going to give it any space. And in doing that, then he gets to come in there and affect the change. Like when I had that time in Mexico this year, I spend a lot of time walking, and I that's my cocoon in Mexico. I put earphones on and I am gone. and we're talking hours and hours and hours, and it's my happy place. And I had no purpose this time. I wasn't studying anything. I wasn't, I had no deadlines. I had my folk on Wednesday nights. It was fabulous just to be part of everybody. It was wonderful. All the stuff that changed was only because I stopped everything else. Didn't worry about anything else for that time. I had been doing all that work, but didn't give any thought to me that what I didn't say the you should da 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 da. I just enter into him, and he did whatever. And I feel incredibly blessed by it to be able to cocoon in a time of meditation to release love without distraction is the biggest gift I could ever have. Without chasing rabbits, without having monkey brain, to sit in that peace. It is. I'm forever grateful. I'm believing that is going to expand too, especially as we go forward. I hope Justin Abrahams has some kind of answer for what we're doing. All I know is if we don't deal with the inside, the outside will be somebody else's journey. Yeah.
There are a few comments, Helen. I just thought I'd read out in case you hadn't seen them. Sharina had said, it's so good. Donna said, oh my, a fabulous teaching tonight. Such encouragement. And Sharina again wrote, we are encouraged. Thank you so much, Helen, for sharing this. It's so practical. It's so practical way to walk in. So, and you missed all the hearts and everything that was happening while you were on full screen, but everyone's really enjoyed. Well, most everyone I saw was engaged. So,
thank you for that. And anybody, all the hearts go right back at you. Yeah, I understand that it may be considered practical, but let me tell you, you walk in that, it's the most supernatural thing. It's above way above practical, because it brings you into a frequency in a zone that that we're called to, and the door is open for us. The door is completely open for us. Yeah.
I just want to quickly say, Hadassah, before you left, I love the fact that you saw all that fruit, because all I could write down was love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, and temperance.
Wow.
The fruit of the Spirit. And you are that. You are all that. We are all the fruit of the Spirit. It was beautiful. I thought, oh, well, there it is. That's us. That's what we put on. So just want to.
Absolutely.
And we were all around the table. It's all there for us. All we have to do is just grab it, eat of it.
You are
Yeah.
it, Hadassah. You're it.
Yeah.
It's you.
You are it too. I am. Yes, I am. Is that ego? Is that ego?
Ego.
Is that ego?
No,
Ego
when
in
I say
English,
yes, I
ego
am.
in Spanish, I guess.
Ego is in Spanish, yeah. So
Yeah.
ego.
Yeah.
Is that my ego? When I say yes, that's me.
no, that's true.
No,
That's
No,
true.
right?
That's
See,
the
I'm
truth.
just kind of like, what is it? What am I supposed to do? Who am I supposed to be? So I'm in that journey. I'm in that journey. And I know the Lord's gonna show everybody. Ego. Thank you.
If there's a truth that you speak, like you just did, Hadassah, that was truth. When you speak the truth that lines up with Father, shout it. It like that is the truth. And that's, you spoke for everyone. If we were all in the same room, we'd be having a group hug. Because we're all in that. That's so good. And that is not your ego. You see, that's what the world says. If you when you say you're really proud of your children's or whatever, that's okay. That's encouraging. That's not when your heart goes after the prize, other than the high calling of Christ, when your direction is for the medal, and that becomes your existence in your life, you have to look at it that, does the medal have you, or do you have the drive? And so it's okay. We get to enjoy the greatness of it, and we're allowed to shout the greatness of it, because you are him. You are. I am. Not saying it very well.
Beautiful.
Donna, are you lighting up because you have something to say? Nice to see your face.
Thank you. I do. I was just thinking about this teaching tonight, and it was just so encouraging to me, because our flesh is never going to pinpoint something in our world, never. But it's the spirit that shows us things that need to be tweaked in us, ego things. And I always am so encouraged when the Holy Spirit points out something within me that needs some change, because it just shows our relationship and our closeness. And if we're recognizing it, then we're hearing from him, and we're participating in the change that he wants to bring about for our good, always for our good.
Always.
So this whole teaching tonight just encouraged me so greatly. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
Wow.
You went in and out a little
You
bit.
went in and out a little bit.
There's an echo. There's something I can do to fix that. Anyway,
You should be
thank
good
you,
now.
Donna. I'm so glad that you're encouraged. Elizabeth, you're on mute.
There we go. Oh my gosh, that was so good. And Donna, what you just shared about the tweaking, it's so interesting, because it seems to really correlate to when these revivals started. Like, there is just such, it's like a breath. He's like breathing into us. And I see it touching everyone. But it's true, some people don't have eyes to see, to recognize it. And so as we're out, however our world would touch people, as he gives us eyes to see, just releasing that into people so that they're like, oh, that is happening, because he's touching everyone. It's so exciting. And about the tweaking, about a week ago, the Lord was really sensitizing me to what was him and what wasn't him. And this is so funny, because one day I had my workout shoes on and I was washing raspberries, and somehow, I just know he was showing me this because I dropped it and stepped on it. But I was totally paying attention to what I was doing, but I took a few steps and it was like smushed raspberry. And I was like, that's so weird. So I cleaned off the shoe, put it back on, took the dogs outside where they were going to the bathroom, and stepped in the exact same spot in poop. The exact same spot on my shoe, same spot. And I was like, okay, I'm paying attention. But that's what he was doing in my heart. He was showing me, this is a mixture of ego. This is me. And I'm like, I'm paying attention. And it felt so good to get that clarity. and just release stuff to him. And now, I don't know, I'm so excited. And I know I'm like, you guys can hear it. I'm like, I can't control myself. When I am out there, I'm just like, I just feel so empowered. And then this is funny too, as we were eating just now, when this started, Todd opened it like I needed a knife to cut up Jen's stuff. And he handed me a knife, and he had just gotten it out of a box. He just ordered us these new knives with, that you like steak knives. But it was like heavy, and it was sharp, and it was bigger than the ones that we had. We only had two. And I was like, that's what God is doing. Like, he's like, we're expanded, we're mature, where he's able to, like in the past when we were more immature, it's like, I can't give you too much of my power because you will kill each other by your words, that you're not paying attention to what you're saying. But I mean, I actually was in tears, and I was like, God, it's happening. Like it's happening. This day is happening now because we have been walking with him and journeying with him and listening and yielding, and it's happening. So yay. That's it.
Elizabeth, that is so powerful. I'm so excited with your excitement, and I'm so excited with the object lessons, like crazy exciting, because he uses these things in our world to talk to us. And Ed and I we're looking at a property out in the beaches on Sunday. It was of interest. I'm taking pictures of the backyard of this because it didn't look right proportionally to what was in the ad. So I'm taking these pictures, and at about the fourth picture that I'm doing, the screen on my phone went red. The picture is red. And
oh my gosh,
Father, is that a stop sign? And I showed Ed, and I said, I think this is a stop sign. I've never had a bright red. The whole picture, red. There was nothing red in the car. Nothing other than this red. And I went, like, these crazy things, like stepping in raspberries and poo. I really is so cool. And I love it because we shouldn't be ignoring these things. It's like when a little person tugs on you because they have something to say. Don't ignore it. All of it's God, all of it, and all of it is for our good. And in the place that we are right now, I just think he is, and he's, because he loves to play, that really he loves joy, and the whole the magic of it. Sorry for religious magic, but it's a magic, and he plays in there. And so to get us our attention, he'll do whatever. It's fabulous.
So fun. That's funny. Today, driving home, yesterday, I kept hitting yellow lights, and I was going too fast to stop. And I noticed that, I'm like, I see that. And then today there was a red light, and I stopped, and I'm like, whoa, you're going to show me when I need to stop. So yes.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I know you have all these conversations going with him, eh? And yeah, it's
so good.
Secret life. Love it. Thank you for sharing that. Don't step in anything. You got the message. It's all good. Susan.
Helen, I love you.
I love you.
I can say the past 6 months, I have been up and down and all around emotionally. And I was beginning to think I was a problem, that somewhere maybe I was depressed, or I had what you call winter blues now, or I don't know, but I've had on and off these frequencies that are very low, which are not me, but they would just show up, and I really wouldn't know why. And I felt I didn't deserve them, and that I really gave it my best at walking in the ways of the Spirit. But when you said some are feeling the darkness of being in that metamorphosis stage,
Yeah.
and feeling alone. Oh my gosh, that describes exactly it. Not so much, yes, I felt alone, but I know I'm not. I know I'm one new man. I know I'm not alone. But the feeling is, I'm alone. And sadness. I have nothing to be sad about. Absolutely nothing. And yet I'd have these feelings of sadness. So now I realize, really, it's like a grief, a sadness. You know why? Because I'm changing. So much is being left behind.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's why I really love you, because it just lifts it all off. Now I get it.
Yeah.
It expressed where I am in my journey. And you're awesome.
Well, I'd like to take all the credit for that, but I'm not going to. You know, that dark, he's in that cloud, like he's in the dark cloud. And it's so amazing when we recognize it. Like we expect, because we're pulling out the good in everything. He's so amazing, right? So when you find yourself in those times, and when the reality is that you're where you're supposed to be, and it's for a reason, and it's good. Wow. Isn't that amazing? Amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
It is. I
Yes.
mean, I did accept where I'm at, because I do believe that. I
Right.
do embrace what comes my way. But yes, he's taking me deeper into the darkness of him, which is exciting, actually.
Very.
I'm good with that.
Very.
Yeah.
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 His
Oh,
mystery.
thank you.
Thank you. That's really sweet. I'm pretty sure in various stages we're experiencing exactly what you just shared. So thank you. Thank you. That helps all of us. All right. Well, I'm just going to check the screen. Is Susan, are you here? Susan Sinowski? Not here?
I don't think
Helen,
that's.
can you hear me?
Oh, there's Greg. Is it Greg?
Yeah, can you hear me, Helen?
I can hear you.
I can't put my hand up because I'm driving. Anyway, I just wanted to say I really found it really helpful tonight. The idea of just saying no to thoughts is good. And something else I was going to say that's just escaping. Oh, I got to write things down. My thoughts disappear. But anyway, I found it very encouraging. I'll have to send you a message later. Anyway, so
Okay. Thank you
very
for
much.
that. Well, thank you for multitasking, fixing the water thing, wiring your house, building a new one, dealing with that, and now you're doing all of this meeting on your phone and now on your car. You're a machine, Greg.
Oh, well, that was Crystal doing the wiring. All I do is hold the flashlight.
Well, you did it well.
Anyway,
Okay.
we
Thank
love you
you.
very much too.
Thank you. Love you guys. Love you very much. All right. Did someone have their hand up?
Lana did.
Lena.
Thank you, Helen. That was awesome. It's been a little dark at times, and Susan, I appreciate everything you said. Yeah, it's well, you know what? I don't have words. I'll just continue on the journey. Quit talking about me and using me as an example, Helen.
Oh, life is good.
Oh, it's good. Yep, for sure.
Totally, totally. Well,
Jacqueline. Oh, can I just read one last thing Jacqueline had shared?
Yeah.
Yeah. She wrote, you released perfect wisdom for how to handle a challenge I face with my elderly, fragile mother-in-law who lives with us now in a home full of stairs. I've been telling her not to carry things in her hands when she uses the stairs. It's a battle. You provided the answer, exclamation mark. I will tell her now happily, let's keep both hands free. Sounds small. It's huge for us at home. And the other comment she added was, I think many of us feel alone and sad at times in this journey, but we know we are crossing over. That's such a great promise, and we are not alone.
no, we're not. Thank you for sharing that. We are, I'm glad coaching works. But we are not alone. We are so in this together. It's such a pleasure, right? To be doing this together. Oh, there's Susan. Hi. It is really a delight. Anyway, we're going to close down this part of the meeting. I'm going to turn the